I got really unhealthy and kind of sick this last October because of running. Like, it wasn't scary, but I was definitely getting concerned, and it just surprised me. It was physically, mentally, emotionally unhealthy. It felt really hard to run 3 miles at a slow pace, and on the weekends, I would be sleeping 15 hours a day. And on top of that, I'd be like kind of falling asleep at times I normally wouldn't, like at work and on calls. And it definitely got concerning, and that's when I realized I needed to dial back running. In fact, I got really sick, like sick where like it was only for a couple days, but where it like hurt to touch my own body or just like grab something. And I realized I needed to make a change, and I started reflecting on it, and I wanted to talk about that reflection so you can avoid the same mistake and talk about my biggest mistake I've made when it comes to running. To be fair, I was doing a lot of volume and racing multiple times a year and like hard. And so I know that was a part of it, but I've realized that we can handle and do much more than we think we can from a physical standpoint. Like overtraining is a thing, and I think I got to that point with what happened to me last year. Though I think it's blown out of proportion. A lot of the times we blame overtraining for things that aren't overtraining, and that gets me into the biggest mistake. I don't really think it's so much overtraining most of the time. Actually, I think it's under recovering. And I want to explain this because I believe you can train as much as you recover. And so it's this idea that you can do more, you just have to recover from it. And sure, yeah, if you did 100 miles every day for 10 days, like you're going to be broken for sure. Like I just saw this guy run 1,000 miles over the course of a couple of weeks. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be broken. Though when it comes to average training, or when you've been doing the things you've been doing for years and then it like goes wrong, I think like in my situation, yes, there's a lot of volume, and I learned that maybe I shouldn't race as hard as often as it was, but my volume wasn't too crazy to what I've been able to do. I think what happened is I stopped doing the things that I did when I first got into running, or maybe within the first 2 years. I took recovery very seriously, and my ego started to get in the way where I'd be like, well, I've done all these crazy things like 300 milers and 10 marathons in 10 days and sub 3 hour marathon. I let my ego get to me where I was like, yeah, I probably don't need to do this, or I don't know if that was an intentional thought, but I don't know. I didn't do what got me to where I was, and I didn't do the things that helped me accomplish everything I did. So the biggest mistake I made was not recovering enough. And when I say this, there's a lot of things that changed. One, I was eating more unhealthy than I was, and I'm pretty good. Like I don't eat fast food and a bunch of sugar, but I stopped paying attention to macros and getting enough protein or eating enough calories and a little bit more greasy food than I typically do, and like processed stuff. Like that's a big part of it, right? Because nutrition, what you put in is fueling your body. If you're not putting the right things, you're not going to recover as well. I was really ignoring my sleep, and I've always had a hard time sleeping, but I just was cutting out hours when I didn't need to and over caffeinating to get throughout the day. I stopped drinking as much water, which of course is important. And I stopped doing things like stretching and like a massage gun or getting regular massages. And I think that's actually one thing that leads to a lot more injuries than people realize is if you have runner's knee, yes, I understand there can be times where you've actually torn or hurt something. I believe the biggest cause of runner's knee is being too tight or not being strong enough in the sense of like you just haven't worked the muscles that you need to support your knee. It would make sense that if my quad is tight as hell, it would be pulling on my kneecap. Or like, I've actually had this tweak in my forearm, and I've realized it's tighter on my right side compared to my left side, and I'm feeling a little pain in my elbow, but I'm not lifting right now. It's like, that's not an overuse injury. That's like, I'm not mobile enough or flexible enough, and so things are pulling on other things in my body, right? And so that's something I would encourage you if you're new to running, or maybe you're letting your ego get to you a little bit. I think it's important to keep doing the recovery things, and it doesn't have to be crazy. But I think stretching a couple times a week, like I used to in the past, if I would have been doing that when I got really unhealthy, I think maybe it wouldn't have been as bad. Maybe I wouldn't have avoided it, but it wouldn't have been as bad. If I had hydrated, I wouldn't have and focused on electrolytes like I did early on in my running career, then I probably wouldn't have gotten as sick or maybe avoided it completely. If I was sleeping, of course, I would have been recovering more. And so I really encourage you to take a look at what's one thing you can implement when it comes to recovery, or like re-implement if you've already been doing it. Just, Rome wasn't built in a day. Like, if you're just going to focus on drinking enough water and you have to change that habit, I think that's plenty. And then stretching, I think, is a close second. And food is really important too, right? Like, there's so many variables. It's just important that we implement as many of them as we can where it's not overwhelming. And so obviously you have to think for yourself and reflect what's going to be the biggest bang for your buck. But I think hydration, nutrition, and stretching are big ones. Sleep, I mean, they're all so important, and it's a lot when you're a runner and you're already training so much. But I think it's really important that you focus on that. And I really do hope you learn from my mistake, because it's been a really hard year, just as I've kind of I wasn't like sick for a year, but like now that I have to rebuild my base and get back into running, and it's going well. It's just been hard, and I think I would have avoided a lot of this pain and grief if I had been recovering. So don't make that same mistake and under recover. Do the best thing you can so you can keep doing the things you love and just stay healthy. And if you like running content like this, feel free to subscribe. If not, that's cool. I hope you got something out of it anyways, because ultimately I want you to be able to enjoy running more, progress, get your PRs, and just have a healthy relationship with it. So I hope I get to see you in another video sometime soon. Peace.